fulfilling the will of those who command you, when supposedly the one who obeys is not wrong, because God's will comes through those who command, makes disobedience also a virtue. How is it possible that I became to believe in the divinity of the line of command for me? Starting to defy the directors of the Opus Dei was a process that took me years, but I must say that rather than starting to disobey, I began to make autonomous decisions. I was a classic numerary who acted by the book, norms, customs, criteria, ways of behaving, thinking and reacting, a heart locked under 7 locks, total availability, and whatever they asked for. I was, of course, an obedient numerary, one of those who gave up his own judgment. If I deviated, I said so in the talk. Maybe that's why I was almost always a director of corporate centers, even a member of the commission for years. Of course I obeyed in endless nonsense and trifles, some others of greater importance, like not visiting my relatives on special occasions. This did not contradict me greatly, because they managed to distort the affections with the people who were linked to me. How horrible that is, right? I was captured by the Opus Dei with the idea of being an ordinary Christian in the middle of the world and the sanctification of professional work. But today I see clearly that I was tricked into working for the Opus Dei for free. At the same time, they made me dependent on them. When I was finishing my university degree, I did an internship in a company. Then they offered me a position. I was very excited. It was the beginning of an eventual professional career, however. I made a consultation with the director of my center. He told me that if I could handle all the assignments, career, and Opus Dei work, he did not see any problem, and I accepted the job. When the commission found out, they called me and asked me who gave me permission to work outside. That question left me confused. They told me that the work needed people to take care of the assignments. It was difficult for me to tell my boss I would not continue after the internship. However, I obeyed again and started joining local councils and stuff. I was not aware my career had been cut short before it began. 2 years after graduating, I began to consider the possibility of pursuing a master's degree. The regional vicar told me it was not the proper time. I still applied for a selective and highly prestigious master's degree. I was admitted, and then I consulted again. They told me no again, and I was reprimanded for even applying. I think it was then when I started to disobey, but kind of not wanting to. I continued with my assignments. Suddenly, a call for scholarships appeared. I applied and won a scholarship. I was told not to. I checked the other semester, and they started saying maybe the following year. Finally, they let me study my master's degree. But under total control of my movements, they gave me more tasks and responsibilities. During those years, I had several internal government assignments and all kinds. Member of the commission. I also traveled to 2 cities. I was director of 2 corporate projects too. They were a few years of professional lying. I was installed there to execute the decisions of the commission, in particular, those which came from the vicar. What I thought didn't matter. You had to obey, and that's it, as one was legally in charge and responsible. Decisions were made and implemented behind one's back. In my CV, I still don't write down anything from those so-called professional years. They make me ashamed. I started a doctorate shortly after my staying on the commission and continued with endless government and training assignments. When I finished my doctorate, they offered me a change of city. I saw it as an opportunity to restart professionally. But they sent me to be director. In my process of making autonomous decisions, I began my government and training assignments and made space to work externally. I wanted to be an ordinary Christian in the middle of the world. I started earning some money. I also began to be financially autonomous. I was happy and excited. I was finding myself again. But on a visit to the commission, I told the vicar about the work and my professional progress. With a bored face, the vicar told me, "I didn't send you to that city to work. I sent you to dedicate yourself to the work." From that moment on, I never informed the vicar of anything. I continued with my assignments and my external work initiatives. But at the same time, they began to assign me more work from the Opus Dei. I started to get fed up with all that. At the same time, I also began to see clericalism within the Opus Dei, all and every day talking about the Opus Dei, the Father, and the Church. I began to think that this was not what it was like to be ordinary Christians in the middle of the world, and thus it began my self-liberation process. After a few months in which I had felt sad and cried secretly, God helped me see clearly on December 31st. I told myself, next year I will stop being a member of the Opus Dei, and I started planning my exit. In a calculated way, I began to make decisions without consulting. I bought a car. I went abroad to take a course. I returned to my country, asked for a loan, and went to live in a rented apartment. I didn't ask permission for any of that. When they came to ask me to think about it, they offered me to change countries, etc. It was too late. I was tired of the Opus Dei, the volume of meditations, the gatherings, the orders, and their manipulation. Even so, within the Opus Dei, there are still some that I have love and affection for. They were and are my brothers. I must say that there are other contemporary numeraries who did have outside jobs and almost no government or training assignments. Good for them. Why did they force me, or why did I let them force me? It always seemed that I was the one who made the decisions regarding dedication to internal tasks. Explanation: the manipulation of consciousness made it possible for the Opus Dei, through the directors, to abuse me. I am not mistaken if, in their eyes, I was the one who made the decisions to cut short my eventual professional career. Without a doubt, the Opus Dei and the manipulation of my conscience has affected my professional career. It has been difficult for me to put myself on the same level of professionalism and experience as my contemporaries, thanks to disobedience and autonomous decision-making. Today I can go out into the streets and act as an ordinary Christian in the middle of the world.